Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.
I love it. Okay, so it's a photo shot at night. The photographer is in front of could be a picnic table or something. On it is well, first of all, there's like bright flame. It's on a street. It's like a communal kind of cookout of sorts. You may be in the frame. I don't know if you're standing there. There are basically three people. One person is dressed as a chef, standing in front of like a bit of a cooking burner kind of space, maybe propane. It's at night. There's a bit of a crowd. It's behind. There's like a one-way street sign that says one way pointing off in the direction. It could be like a food fest, street festival in Toronto, or it could be Louisiana. It could be New Orleans. I don't know. It's got that really festive vibe. There's food kind of wrapped in aluminum foil. What really makes the photo is these three guys kind of close together, and in front of them is this couple of pots or frying pans with flames shooting up. Yeah, great photo. And take it from here. What is this?
Just tell me about the guy on the right. What do you make of him?
Well, my right or your right? There's one guy. Okay, so everybody. It's summer. It's summer. There's let's see. I
smaller guy.
Okay, so that's you, and you're kind of your hands kind of on top of the chef's. I think it's a kind of on top of the chef, or maybe just standing behind them, and. Yeah. So what do I make of that? You're smiling.
Okay. What do you make of the guy on the other side? That was just kind of the key to the photo in some ways.
Okay. And on the other side, there's the chef. He's wearing I don't know the name of the hat, like a pork pie hat. Or a fedora kind of hat. Next to him, I don't know if he's a famous hockey player. He's very Caucasian, bright, looks muscular. Yeah. I don't know. What is the setup?
Okay. Well, first of all, I think it's astounding. You got Louisiana. It's in New Orleans.
Oh.
And it's on Frenchman Street, and he's a well-known chef. But he does street food, obviously.
Yeah.
The guy I'm with there is Art Napoleon. Art is a Cree Indian, as you know, northern Canada. And he's the star of a show last night after 7 years running. It's called Moose Meat and Marmalade. But the point I'm trying to make is that Art is a wonderful culture broker. He grew up in a Cree community in northern BC, speaking only Cree until he was 5. So he's really immersed in those cultural traditions, and he's done a wonderful job not only of maintaining those, but also explaining them and sharing them. And with his television program, Moose Meat and Marmalade, where they literally go all over the world, looking at, he's sort of the bush chef, and he's paired with a classically trained British chef. And so they go to native communities, Aboriginal communities, but they also go to Paris and places like that. It's a wonderful show, and it's now airing in 14 countries. But the reason this is sort of part of that whole story of how you can combine these cultures together. A guy from a remote northern community in British Columbia, a chef, a black chef in New Orleans, and then just kind of this random white guy, but all in this wonderful mix of New Orleans.
Yeah. It's a gumbo of sorts. Now, look, I have to interrupt because, so there's a movie that I don't remember the title. I think it's called The Indians Who Rocked America or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's a documentary of the roots of rock and roll. And in it, what you do is they kind of show how the native First Nations really influenced the kind of the growth of rock, right? And so part of that ties into Louisiana, to New Orleans, showing how the blacks of New Orleans, of Louisiana, are really mixed with First Nations. And in the movie, they talk about Robbie Robertson, who's Cree,
Yeah, Roger,
who's
obviously, yeah.
right, who's like. So it's a funny parallel. So that you're talking to me about this photo about food, and then my connections go to this thing about music, and you're talking about art and exchange, and yeah, it fired me right up. Like lots of connections there. And so the name of the show again
Is moose meat, obviously, and marmalade. But I also wanted to say that Art is a very accomplished musician. He's written his a lot. He opened for Buffy St. Marie. He's done a lot of.
Yep.
He's an extremely accomplished musician, and if you are interested, just look up Art Napoleon music, and you'll see lots. And he also sings a lot of songs in Cree. And he also teaches Cree online. So he's a really remarkable guy. But the music that you say, is also there. And when you hear him go into a full on chant, you get goosebumps. I've been fortunate enough to work in a lot of Native communities, which is how I know Art. And again, it's not. I'm afraid we're getting to a point where we're romanticizing that these are people with in many cases, with perspectives that we don't have. In many cases, they don't. I mean, it's like anybody, right? Any group of people. Some of them are very wise and very thoughtful, and some aren't. So, Art's one of those that really is, and he's one of these guys that also brings it together in his music, in his day-to-day life. He lives, he went through the full Sundance 4 cycles. He's a remarkable guy, And so I wanted to but not just pay homage to him, but pay homage to those people who work so hard to bring us together, to find common ground. Robbie Robertson, who say, we all share our cultures. That's what we do. That's the way we enrich ourselves. That's the way we grow as a species. And Art's one of those guys who sort of spent his entire life doing that, as I say, being a culture broker. Very, incredibly proud. And he's living up north. He hunts. He's an expert hunter. A lot of on the show that they would actually go out and shoot the game, and then he would show how to prepare it. So he's teaching his knowledge and his way of being in the world. At the same time of being able to live in that larger world. And to me, that I think is the example we need to strive for, to be proud of our own backgrounds and our own cultures, but also understand that that's just one of many. And that, ultimately our survival depends on finding ways to getting beyond us and them and start, talking about a largest group possible.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And on top of that, I'll ask, so as a thinking, reading human, what have you learned? Have you explored the world of neurobiology? Like, for example, in terms of the neuroscience of what us and them looks like, and why that happens, why those kind of reflexes kick up. Because what's really interesting in this conversation, at least, is that you seem to, for 50 years, at least, have tackled this kind of question of, well, what is experience? And why is it that my experience, or your experience, like one's experience in BC could be connected to Newfoundland, which could be connected to Nicaragua, and the Gambia, and now, the States, New Orleans, which is a very unique life experience. So why don't you talk about where did this epiphany come from?
Well, first of all, I'm really glad you brought up what we're learning. We're learning more and more about how our brains work, and one of the guys I'm reading right now that I like a lot is a guy named David Sampson, who's an evolutionary biologist, and he's done a lot to document. Right through our DNA, that there is probably a inherited tendency to be distrustful of those who are different from us.
Yep.
There was a Canadian anthropologist on CBC years ago, and he said, those tribes that saw strangers and said, oh, look, new friends, let's have them over for dinner. Well, they're probably not in the gene pool anymore. And unfortunately, I think that's quite true. And so, this is an impulse that may have served our survival well over the 1.8 million years of us kicking around, but it's utterly dysfunctional now. So I don't, I was no different than anyone else. I mean, I grew up in a suburban American home. The difference was, I think, that for reasons that I don't fully understand, my parents, through the church, brought in people from different cultures. I can remember a guy from Sudan. There was an East Indian guy come over for dinner on Sunday. We'd have these long discussions. And so there was, there were people into the house. It wasn't just, and I can remember thinking, gee, it's an interesting world out there, and I guess that influenced me more than I'd thought until you just mentioned that. I think that's quite interesting because I hadn't really thought about that too much. But I mean, I just was fascinated by different, like when I went to university, Michigan State University, I started, for whatever reason, I took a course in Chinese history. I thought, wow, this is crazy. I didn't know this was out there. I didn't know anything about these guys. They've got this 5,000-year history and nobody told me about it. How did that happen? So you get more into that and you get into philosophy and say, hey, they've got a worldview. It's pretty cool, and it's worth really considering. And and then, of course, when you have these wonderful experiences like I've had where I'm working with colleagues, I'm not passing through. Like I'm not going to a 5-star hotel in Banjul. I don't know if they have any in Banjul, but anyway, I'm working with colleagues and going to their homes for dinner, and I'm meeting their kids, and so you come to realize that we've got a hell of a lot more in common than we do that keeps us apart. And it's not a matter of saying, well, I think that's the moral way to see it. It's just the way it is. And I think if you're at all open, and if you're at all, if you have the capacity to get beyond your, I guess, tribal instincts, you can't help but see it. I mean, it's just in your face. It's just a different, let's find what we have in common and celebrate those rather than, circle up the wagons and fire at the ones who aren't like us. And I mean, we've been doing this for a long time. As you know, lots of Aboriginal names of Aboriginal groups actually mean the people, right? Like Inuit means the people. By definition, everybody else is kind of the not people, right? So we do it the right way and they do it the wrong way. So it's not just us, us being Anglos. I mean, it's everywhere. But you can see in a country like the Gambia, where you've got 9 tribes living together, tribal groups, ethnic groups working together, and doing pretty damn well. Or Ghana, where you've got 23, 24 groups and get along, fairly well. You realize it doesn't have to be constant conflict. And to be fair, those divisions are exploited politically, just like they are here. And people from out, tribal affiliations are very important, and all of those things are going on. But you realize that they don't have to go on. We can be different, and if we can just sort of look beyond ourselves and see that there's so many wonderful ways, and to learn from each other. That's the other thing. It's not like it's like you're giving up something. You're gaining so much by seeing the world from another perspective. I just. Wade, Wade Davis, the anthropologist?
No.
Do you know him? I got this up on my wall here. He says, the world in which you were born is just one model of reality. Other cultures are not failed attempts at being you. They are unique manifestations of the human spirit. And I think that, I just the way it is. And if you're, as I say, how can you not go to that meeting in Nicaragua and not see the nobility, see the pride and the goodness in those people, and look at those kids in the Gambia. How can you not see their joy and see their happiness and understand that this is what we're all trying to be, and let's do it together instead of apart.
Don Sawyer, listen, it's great. So the links to your website are going to be in the show notes, as are to your book or books. This has been really great. The conversations scream by, and I love the adventure and the tour that you took me on. This is great.
Well, thank you for going along that trip with me. It's been a lot of fun.
No, it's fantastic. And we live in an amazing world that a kid born in Michigan who ends up in BC, now lives in Ontario, is speaking to a kid who was born in Jerusalem, grew up in Montreal, and is now living in Hong Kong. Like, that is pretty nuts.
Well, that's what we're talking about, right?
Yep.
We better get over it, because we're all one world, whether we like it or not.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's like these aren't aspirations; these are realities.
Absolutely. Well, have a fantastic evening, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rand. I really enjoyed it.
So, is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So, if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting